Welcome in to the Geeks Vegas Lines from DFS Army, Week 15, our premier NFL podcast where we break down the DFS slate from a Vegas lines and betting perspective. I'm sitting here with John Alicia. How you doing, my friend? Statsational.
Yeah, I'm doing well. What's going on?
All right. Did you have a pretty good week from the betting perspective?
Betting was it was a little shaky. We got some back last night, which was good. So the NFL was not awful, but not great. Hit a couple of college basketball games over the weekend, so that made up for it as well.
Yeah,
DFS not too bad though.
I saw you hit a couple of good contrarian plays as well with Miami and Cincinnati. I always love that when I see you hit a couple of ones that are going opposite of what the market is. So I really enjoyed that. I profited from that.
Giants as well last 2 nights ago, I guess it was.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And I'm also sitting here with founder in chief SD, the Geek. How are you, my friend?
What's up, Says, man? Excited to be back. Week 15.
And we are sponsored this week by Beat the Bookie, the new sister website launched already from DFS Army, a sports wagering advice site, which we're going to talk about midway through. And we'll have some notes up on how people could join and get discount codes. But Geek, you took a moment to look at the Week 15 slate. What were your first impressions as we begin to break it down?
Yeah, I think it's really important to note. So looking over the slate, it's funny because we're coming off of a couple of weeks, not just one, a couple of weeks of kind of like really bad looking matchups. The good matchups or the best teams kind of were in blowout situations or great offenses against really great defenses where you just didn't see a lot of games that were going to blow up. And it was very obvious going into those slates and for DFS purposes that, these are going to be slightly lower scoring weeks than usual. Tournament winning scores were going to be down a little bit because all of the games kind of had a lot of weirdness going on. And there were very few sort of close, high scoring projected games. And the ones that were that seemed a little sketchy for whatever reason. Now we get the polar opposite. You have 6 or 7 games on this slate that are all, between, let's say, 46 and 48 and a half points. There's one 50-pointer in terms of the implied projection. But other than that, lots of 48 and a halves and 48s and just these great looking close games with spreads 3 points or less. And there's enough of them that it's going to be a really exciting week for DFS purposes. And I fully expect and know that scoring will be higher than usual this week. A lot of great matchups. So don't think that this is one of those weeks where 220 is going to win you a tournament on DraftKings like it would last week, or like a 180 was winning you something on FanDuel. We're going to see elevated scores this week, which is fun. It's fun because it's different. And what I've noticed in DFS world in general is that people kind of follow what happened last week or the week before that a lot more than they probably should. Whereas you should really be studying the matchups and then making a decision as to what approach you're going to use this week. So really different in terms of that that sort of setup for the week.
A real low-scoring affair like San Francisco and New Orleans, right, John?
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking that too. It's part of when you're dealing with these big, 10, 11, I think we got, 13 games, whatever it is now at this point in the season on these slates. We sometimes, and I said this probably one of the first podcasts I did with you guys, is have a strategy going into the season and kind of play your strategy, especially if you're playing from a mass entering standpoint. I don't like to vary how I enter them on the mass entry all that much as far as how heavy a stack in one game or how many play, I've got a strategy and then I go and execute that every single week. Now, if you were doing individual, playing a one lineup, single lineup, maybe you varied it a little bit last week because of the slate. But what I really want to do is try to keep things simple, have that game plan going in, and then saying, okay, which one of these games fit into what I'm trying to do. So if I'm looking to do if I'm playing a strategy where I'm going to play if I'm going to play a quarterback with 2 pass catchers and 1 pass catcher from the opposite team, I want to just keep doing that every single week and not trying to overanalyze it. Because we look at these games and we go, wow, there's, what a difference. This game's a 50-point total and this one's a 46-point total. Like in our world, we so micro analyze everything. It's 4 points, right?
Paralysis by analysis.
Or
Totally.
just 2 for one of the teams, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. And then that's the other thing you need to look at more than looking at just the total of the game is look at the team totals. And sometimes you'll find a game with a total of 46 that's got a better team total than that 47, 48, 49 total. So again, but I always recommend kind of having your strategy, build your strategy out before the season starts. And then as long as the strategy is sound, stick with it, because it's very hard to pick and choose which week is going to be that week. And like you said, you're going to get that game, that New Orleans game is going to just blow up, and nobody expected that to happen.
Hold up.
Did you anticipate 100 points in that game?
Hold up. Now, you were with me on the Wolfpack podcast last week.
Yeah, but I don't listen to you.
And I know you don't. There was a point where I'm like, "Are you writing down? I just said to play Garoppolo," and he's like, "No, I don't listen to you." Fuck
you did, but, and I did play Garoppolo in my fantasy, so I did not play Duck.
All right, at least that.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I asked you just during the Breeze and Garoppolo breakdown. I said, "You writing that shit down?" And you're like, "No, I'm writing something else." Because
all right, boys.
Somebody anticipated it.
We got a full slate of games, and I want to get into the detail because week 15 is the week I want to listen to you and win $1 million. So I'm going to be listening closely. I'm going to be taking notes, and I put these games in a strategic order, in the order I want to talk about them. I'm being very selfish today, okay? Right. And the first game I want to talk about is New England, who's in trouble, John, and they're going into Cincinnati. Cincinnati, I have the wrong line up there right off the bat. The line should be plus 9.5, correct? What do you
Cincinnati,
have?
Yeah, no. Cincinnati is
what do you have
quickly 9.5. Yeah, plus 9.5. Okay.
So Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's plus 9.5.
Yeah, Cincinnati's plus 9.5. The total is a low 40.5. This seems like a low number for traditional New England, but what I've seen the last couple of weeks, what everyone's seen the last couple of weeks, is New England doesn't really have offense. Take me through this. Break it down, John.
Yeah, well, it's been more than the last couple of weeks. I mean, we talked about this early in the season. New England played a very light schedule, and the offense did not look good in those games. The schedule's gotten more difficult. The offense still has yet to improve. And the problem has been the defense just hasn't been as good against some of these better teams. So that's what we're seeing with New England. I mean, New England's on the verge here of, one, not getting a bye in the playoffs, and two, possibly losing the division if Buffalo can beat them here at the end of the season. So this is a big game. It's a big spread, but as we saw with Houston last week and several other games this year, no lock here. Nothing's guaranteed, and Dalton's back, and Cincinnati has looked a little bit better with Dalton. So the line, like you said, it's 9.5. Not shockingly, the money's coming in on Brady and the Patriots, 80% of it on the cash side, and just about the same on the tickets. Yeah, that total is a little bit more interesting as far as the market is a little more undecided here, about 55-45, favoring the underside of this game of 40.5. So that's curious. It has gone up about a half point since the open, but yeah, with the lack of offense that New England has showed, and I think the anticipation here is New England's defense is going to be able to shut Cincinnati down fairly easily. We could be looking at a very low-scoring game.
Yeah, Cincinnati's defense has been playing a little bit better lately. If the money's going on New England and that spread kicks up to 10, I'm certainly interested. Geek, New England, we're not used to saying, being worried about them. But is there anyone that you're even close to comfortable playing outside of Julian Edelman?
No. Unfortunately, not that. Listen, am I worried about New England? No. Am I considering them the favorite now to make the Super Bowl? No. I think that Ravens are now, and just on the betting odds and for every other reason, they're the clear favorite. But I'm not worried about New England. They just had a couple tough matchups. But no, is there anything exciting going on in this offense? Just like it's always been for New England, there is not. When you're playing the Bengals, you want to run it against them. You know already, if you've been watching or listening to this show for however many years that this has been going on, and we're 5 years in, 6 years into Geeks Vegas Lines, or however many years this has been around, that I don't play quarterbacks on heavily favored teams. A team that is minus 9.5 points, that's too much for me. Cincinnati, you don't tend to throw against them because you don't need to, and I don't see any way that Cincinnati is going to be able to produce offense in this game anyway. So The issue for me is I think New England defense is going to smash here. I think maybe one of their running backs is going to do well. Can I tell which one? Hell no. Sony Michel just looks like a hot pile of shit right now. And I can't tell from game to game whether it's going to be Michel, White. Bolden was playing last week. I mean, the amount of names they gave touches to, the names are too many.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how about that whole draft class of running backs? Even Nick Chubb disappointed for fantasy in those last few games. Saquon Barkley's been a disappointment. I mean, you're not worried about those guys long term. Kerryon Johnson, Darius Geis injured again. Sony Michel. I mean, what a disaster for a running back class I had a lot of hope for fantasy. Anybody on the Cincinnati side you're interested in? Joe Mixon could get a ton of carries. Okay, you're just out. All right. That sounds good. I get why. I understand.
No.
John, so the next matchup that I wanted to talk about is Chicago. I mean, who's been a little bit hot from a fantasy perspective. They're going into Green Bay, though. Buzzkill. Green Bay laying 4.5, total 41. Take me through it.
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers has gotten he's earned his paychecks against the Bears. I know the Bears have had just historically a tough time beating Aaron Rodgers. So this line at 4.5 is seeing about 60% of the money coming in on the Green Bay side. The tickets are about 50-50, so that's something to note. We're getting slightly higher ticket sizes on the Green Bay side of this game. When it comes to the total of 40.5, similar, 60-40, except on the under in this game. So 2 games in a row here where we've got pretty good defenses. And in this game, where the market is actually expecting the under and Green Bay.
Geek, who are the players that you're going to focus in on? I mean, I know it's really ugly to say Mitch Trubisky and a DFS. Why would you take him? But, he has been hot. They have been playing better. And I just think that there is, any of those players that have been playing well, Anthony Miller, they're going to be low owned. Is there a certain amount of tickets that you'd put them on?
Listen, if you need to be different, and I don't need to be different. Like when I was in high school, I was not with the goth clothes and and that shit. I didn't have that. I didn't have that need. Right.
I thought people did that to be different.
That's the need to be different. That's I need to be different. Even though you're conforming, you feel like you need to be different. You put a little eyeliner on. Hey, I'm so different. Here, I'm going to listen to the Crew. What the hell's that band?
The
Cure. Yeah, you fucking listen to that shit.
I love the Cure.
I just busted you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I just don't wear the eye makeup.
I'm taking away what I said last time about us walking together to Sheepshead Bay to go watch movies at the UA. I would not walk with you. No, not with the Clue or the Cure playing.
The Cure, man.
No, I don't need to be different. Listen, you're right. The only side of this game that even holds the slightest sniff of interest would be Chicago, because the Chicago players are pretty cheap. And, it's Green Bay is not a spectacular defense. They can't stop the run. Chicago doesn't have any running backs, but if they did, they can't stop the run somewhat. And, you would think that Green Bay would have an easy time scoring, so Chicago has to answer. But I just said in the opening of this, there are 6 or 7 games that are like legitimately exciting, high-scoring games on the slate, some of which have very cheap pieces in them. Anthony Miller's been great. Taylor Gabriel could come back. That kills the Anthony Miller play. The nice thing about Chicago is there's no tight ends on the roster, so they're just basically throwing it to the 2 guys, Robinson and Miller or Tariq Cohen. I think Tariq Cohen has a little bit of sneaky appeal in this game. He's just so talented, and maybe Montgomery's dinged up a little bit. But all in all, stay away from this one. This is another one that, and I don't want to dismiss games too quickly, but this is like, when you're making your lineups, you ain't going to this game, or you shouldn't be.
All right, John. Miami back-to-back New York games. This time going into the New York Giants. Giants laying a little bit more than a field goal, 3.5, 46.5 under over for this game. Eli presumably going to be the starter again, where people could not have been impressed with what they saw outside of that second quarter from Eli. He looked a little mobile. Take me through the numbers on this one and any impressions you have on this game.
Yeah, I mean, Eli, like I said, I had the Giants on Monday night, but Eli didn't look particularly great. I mean, you're getting what you're getting here from Eli at this point. The numbers were horrible. And Yeah, I think now all of a sudden it's crazy how a few weeks changes everything. The perception of Miami is not that they're a good team, but they're not the worst team anymore.
They're not a doormat.
Yeah, that's the perception now. So these lines that were, every game, no matter who they played, was going to be two touchdowns on the line. Now we're getting a very respectable 3.5 line, which is saying they think the Giants are just slightly better here than Miami on a neutral field. I'm not even sure that's right. The case right now. I think you've got one team that's playing hard, and while they played really well in that game on Monday night, I think the worry is perhaps this team is going to pack it in for the year, being the Giants. Disappointing season. So we'll see. But as far as the money, it's pretty much 50-50. And as I say that, and I talk bad about the Giants, we're seeing that way more tickets come in on Miami. And with the money being 50-50, so we got about 70% of the tickets and then 50-50 on the cash. So the higher ticket sizes are the Giants. But the game is really not being bet. There's not a lot of liquidity on that game. As we know, the better matchups tend to get bet more by the public. So interesting. We might be seeing a little bit of sharp money here on the Giants in this game, John, which wouldn't shock me. Yeah.
Before I throw it over to the Geek, when you talk about like where the money is on either side, what's the actionable takeaway for a DFS player? So should they be looking for guys that are on the sharp side? Is that really what you're saying here?
Well, I would say I wouldn't use that as a sole tool. Mm-hmm. These are almost tie-breaking situations for me. I'm not 100% sure on these two teams, and that would be one way I would decide on maybe which way to go. Start looking at the line movement. If heavy money starts coming in against the team that you like, we've done this before. We had this a few weeks ago. I think Geek, you contacted me on like that Carolina game right before you went to the King of the Beach.
Yeah, no, at the King of the Beach. I'm telling you, I want to relay. Yeah. I was at the King of the Beach, and I'm debating. Was it the week before? It was, I think, the qualifier week for the King of the Beach.
Yeah,
and I was debating between Driscoll and Kyle Allen as my quarterback because I knew I wanted to pay down. And I said I actually got in touch with John. I said, listen, what the fuck is going on with this line movement, man? This team total keeps going down. And he said, it is going down. Like, that's a warning, right? It's a little bit of a warning.
And I liked I liked Atlanta in that game as far as my model had Atlanta. So it's one of those things. If you couple, if you've got a reliable model, and I trust my model, and you look at line movements that sort of correlate that, it's easy to get yourself off a game that you normally would have liked. In Atlanta, if you remember at that time going in, the defense was getting torched. That was a team everyone liked to pick on.
Yeah.
And then we moved away. That was the Allen with everyone was playing Samuel and Moore that week. And you being able to pivot off of that game helped you get to the to the final.
Yeah, I played Driscoll. He got me a miraculous 26 points. All I wanted was, I said it on the thing, 4,600 DraftKings. All I wanted was 18 points. He got me a miraculous 26. Everybody played Lamar Jackson. He got them 30 points, but my 26 for 4,600 was enough of a difference maker that I finished fourth in that contest out of 200. And, literally beast moded my way into the King of the Beach.
Yeah. Just quick. I don't want to take up too much time on it, but if you go through every game like we're doing here, go through the games, and this is early in the week. Our perceptions or our opinions might change come Saturday, Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. We may have a change of opinion, but you need to do that as well as a player. Go through the games, make a note. I think this game could go this way. I think this game, and this is why, right? And then see, are the line movements sort of backing what I'm thinking? Put all the pieces of the puzzle. This is a big puzzle that you have to put together. And then on Sunday morning, you've got to just submit your test and see how you do.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally one of the most questions. It's pretty often I get that question about, hey, when you guys do Geeks Vegas lines, that's really great information that John's giving, but how can I apply it? So I think you explained it really well there. Geek, break this down quickly. We got a full slate to go here. Anyone in Miami that you're using? I would, I'm not so sure there, but the Giants side seems a little interesting. There's a rookie receiver I thought you might talk about.
Well, let's look at a bunch of this because and this is very, very important. Devontae Parker is a key cog in this Miami offense, as crazy as it sounds. He's the only guy that really is a big play guy. So his availability, I think, looms large. More for betting purposes too, John. I would say that I'll give Miami a much better shot of being competitive or winning this game if Parker is in the game. He could totally exploit that sort of porous Giants defense, and they don't have anybody else who can do that. And that's the problem with Ryan Fitzpatrick. At some point, you need to have some talent on the team, and there's nothing behind Parker. Alan Hearns, Isaiah Ford took over. Albert Wilson, the perpetually questionable. Mac Hollins, who was just released by the Eagles for sucking. I mean, at some point, these are a bunch of fucking super turds that I'm not playing. I don't want to play Isaiah Ford. Please don't force me.
Next year, when they get Preston Williams back, that's going to be a lethal 1-2 combo with him.
Well, for Miami, they'll look better. Yeah, they'll look better, but they have nothing now. And if Parker's out, it's just a disaster for them. But if he plays, I think it's a whole different scenario. So it's early in the week. On the Giants side, wow, so many weapons to take advantage of this Miami defense, but will they do it? Saquon Barkley, his running style is perfection to exploit this Miami defense, but he sucks lately. You got Slayton, not to be confused with Satan.
Isn't it funny how they're both named Slay, Darius Slay and Darius Slayton?
Yeah, Darius Hayward Slay. I have another one, Darius Hayward Slay. I like to throw the Hayward in there just to mess it all up.
Hayward Bay, right?
Yeah, Darius Hayward Slay, baby. So Slayton looked amazing last week, catching deep touchdowns. He's the big play guy. Here's a reminder. The Eagles are vulnerable to that big splash play. They've been getting hammered by those type plays all season. And as horrible and disgusting as this is, Terry McLaurin is playing against the Eagles this week. Just to mention, super GPP only, but we saw it with Slayton last week, and he could do it again here. Shepard, any of these guys are playable on the Giants. Do I have this overwhelming desire to play anybody under the helmsmanship of Eli Manning? Generally, no, but I'll actually play some Eli Manning stacks to get exposure to these guys, because I do think, as disgusting as it is, I'm going to stack. I'll get a couple stacks going with Eli here. But I'll feel a lot better about it if Devontae Parker is back.
You are listening to the Geeks Vegas Lines, the DFS Army premier podcast. We're reviewing the Week 15 slate, going over it with Statsational and the Geek. Next game up, John, we're going to be talking about Philly going into Washington. This used to be one of my favorite matchups in all of NFL. This year, not so much. Washington getting 4.5, total of 40. Take me through it all.
Yeah, well, this game means a lot to Philly because now the division is within reach with Dallas just struggling here down the stretch. So Philly 4.5, that was 6. It's down to 4.5 with the money all coming on the Eagles here, 85% of it, and slightly less on the tickets, 65% on the tickets. So, the cash coming in on Philly, despite how poorly they've looked, and really Washington's looked a lot better of late. Their defense has played well in recent time, and that's really reflected in the total, which is 40. Interestingly, though, on the total, we're getting 93% of the money coming under. So another game here that we're looking at potentially very low scoring. I mean, my numbers have it just pitiful. I've got, if you go over to mine, the only thing that I have in green on my model is the Philly rushing game. Everything else is just pitifully in the red. So, Geek, I don't know. You mentioned McLaurin. Not much else going on here.
No, and the McLaurin play is really one of those. It's like the supreme GPP only. Like, this matchup does dictate big splash plays to a wide receivers like McLaurin. And if I thought there was any way that Dwayne Haskins could deliver the football to him, like, I'd be more interested. But when I mention that, I just want to keep it in your mind that they have been very vulnerable to that splash play, and that's the only guy on the Washington team that has the possible capacity to do such a thing, to have a splash play. But beyond that, I agree with the people betting the under here. This is a shitstorm of a game. Geis is out, which means you're going to get the plotting, running style of Adrian Peterson going up against a pretty good defense for that type of style. I don't want to have to try to figure out Miles Sanders and Boston Scott at this point. That is just a disaster of something to even have to think about. So none of the pass catching options are interesting for the Eagles. I mean, everybody's out for the season over there. They're just trotting out Ertz and Goddard and a bunch of Nair duels. So the whole thing's a shitstorm. I guess maybe if Aguilar came back, maybe there'd be some slight interest in him just because of a massive number of targets that he might get as the only outside wide receiver. I can't trust Arcega-Whiteside or Mac. I don't remember what's that guy's name. I should have this open in front of me. That other dude, Mac, not Hollins.
You talking about on the Eagles?
Yeah, there's another. Is he hurt? There was another guy. The other wide receiver that's
Mac Hollins.
Yeah, well,
Mac Hollins is
Mac
gone.
Hollins on Miami now.
Oh.
Gage Win. You know what? Hang on. I should have had this open in front of me so I don't mess up names. But Greg Ward. So do I want to trust Greg Ward? No. Arthega-Whiteside. Okay. He's got a questionable tag. This is just a shitstorm. Stay away from it. There's good games this week.
All right. So
John's nodding in agreement. Are you nodding at me or
I'm nodding with you that this is not a game that I want to be anywhere near.
Let me ask you something, guys. On the half PPR sites, on like FanDuel, with Darius Geis going on IR, is Adrian Peterson? I mean, that guy just comes through in spots like this. Is he someone you could pay down for? I didn't check his price, but are you at all interested if you're trying to? Is he
not down enough?
All right.
It's just not down enough.
FanDuel, I really especially like having the big running backs.
Okay.
The higher price running back.
That makes sense. All right, guys. Enough with that game then. If there's no one there to play, the game that I think is pretty interesting is Seattle is going to go to Carolina. Carolina's getting 6. The total's 48 and a half. The reason I like this game, John, is because I want to see what Seattle does on the road to what is supposed to be an average team. If they don't smash here, I'm out on Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle, I've mentioned this before. They're not as good a team overall as their record is, but Russell Wilson is one of the few quarterbacks who elevates his team to perform better than the record. One of the main reasons is he just doesn't throw the key interception. And we see that on the flip side with, let's say, a Tampa, where their team is actually better than the record because of the opposite reason with their quarterback. But if you look at this game, Seattle is getting 75% of the money, not a shock. They're getting a lot more in tickets than they are in the money. So we're getting some slightly heavier tickets on the Carolina side. The total is absolutely split 50-50 on the tickets and on the cash. So this is interesting. Seattle has been a very good fantasy team on both sides. The Seattle games have been of pretty good interest here for DFS purposes. Wilson's been phenomenal. You've been able to score against this team as well. And so I think this is a game where we might have some interest on the DFS.
Geek, John was talking about the Seattle players. Russell Wilson, he's always phenomenal and he's very volatile. As I know, you own him in a bunch of leagues. The last couple weeks, though, it's been a little bit down. Could this be a get well game for him?
Well, let me just take you back to the preseason. Let's take the Wayback Machine. When we were talking about Russell Wilson and his ranking and where to rank him as a quarterback. And I told you, listen, this is a guy I've been riding or die with for many, many years in a dynasty league. And I'm very familiar with his patterns because when you have a guy in a dynasty league like that, you get familiar with their patterns. And Russell Wilson just will not put up a big number if he's not forced to. Now, last week, it was a tough game. Rams, beware of the Rams defense, guys. They're good. But it was a tough game against the Rams. But before that, we've got a bunch of disappointing games here, even one that was a high-scoring affair. But, Seattle will lean on the run when they can. So there is definite danger here, beyond definite, that this Carolina defense, I mean, if you look at this, John's model itself, it's calling for 173 rushing yards from Seattle. And a lot of that is not coming from Russell Wilson. He is not a prolific rushing quarterback. What's happening here is John is saying, and the numbers are saying that Carolina's rush defense is so bad that teams don't necessarily bother to throw a lot against them, right? The other thing going on with Russell Wilson right now is I don't know what the fuck is up with Tyler Lockett. I'm not sure if he's hurt, if he's out there like just not fully himself. He hasn't done anything for weeks. So there's concerns there. That all being said, I do like this game environment a little bit. The spread is +6. Seattle tends to play a close game. I'm more interested in it from the Panthers side than I am from the Seattle side. On Seattle, I just think, you almost have to just play Chris Carson, hold your nose. and expect him to get 30 touches because, outside of him and CJ Prosise, there's not a whole lot going on in the running game for Seattle right now. Penny is out, and games where Penny hasn't played, Chris Carson has tended to do very well. If you'll note, the last 2 games that Penny did play in, he got 20 touches, 15 touches. So there's a lot of extra touches to go. And those were games in which, one of which where Penny got 20 touches, Carson got 23. It's a lot of fucking touches, man. That means 43 running back touches in a single game. That was that game also where Russell Wilson didn't do well. So we know Seattle, they could give Carson 30-plus touches here. Really good play. On the flip side, Carolina, Christian McCaffrey is in this game. Anytime Christian McCaffrey is in the game at home, you want to play him. You want to try to squeeze him into your lineup if you can. I always like DJ Moore. He's just been great. We had the cheapie last week go off for us in Ian Thomas. More of the same. So I don't like Russell Wilson per se. I can't really pay up for Tyler Lockett when he's coming off of like a 0, an 8, a 4, and a 5.
Bad.
The last 4 games outside of like crazy tournaments, I can't pay up for that. Right. But the target numbers are more concerning than anything. 4, 2, 3, and 6. Like, what the fuck is going on?
He's always been a low target guy. He's just been so efficient, like historically efficient on those targets. Like he would always get 4 targets, but have, 3 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that would be a typical Tyler Lockett line. It's just not happening right now.
This guy brutalized people's chances of making the fantasy playoffs and advancing in them. No kidding. I mean, like, he brutalized them. Like you got me a 0 in play-in week and then an 8 last week when I'm counting on you. So, it's tough. It's tough. I don't really want to get down with that. And DK Metcalf and the other weapons are just too expensive around Wilson. Wilson needs to explode for these guys to pay off. I don't like it. Yeah,
I think they're going to take another receiver in the early rounds next year. There's certainly quite a few of them that are going to be available when they pick. All right, John, Tampa Bay, Jameis, historic fantasy weekend. I hope you had a little of him last week. This week going into Detroit. Detroit getting a little bit more than the field goal, 3.5, total 47.5. I think I saw some sneaky value here. No Mike Evans. And then also, is Mike Evans still on the price list? I hate when the sites do that. When a guy is ruled out for the year, but they still have them in there. I mean, what are they tricking people into putting Mike Evans in their lineup?
Evans, I don't know if is he in there this week?
He's in the player pool. I mean, he'll be pulled.
They're always in the pool, but I don't know how much he is. 6,800. Yeah, so he's at a reasonable. He's at a normal price. Yeah,
great price. Let's get him. There's going to be someone out there. I bet you if you look at him, I bet you he's at least 0.01% owned. I bet you someone doesn't know that he's injured.
There's always going to be that. It'll be a little higher than that actually. But you also get people who put in they put in lineups to hold a position, to hold their place in a game.
Right.
And then they never update it. So you get a bunch of that as well.
I'm going to go super contrarian and only put guys on IR.
Yeah. That'll definitely make sure you set your alarm and wait and put your real lineup in.
I've had my placeholders on FanDuel many times with those guys in contests because I forget to change them. FanDuel just stealth sneaks placeholders for you in your account and doesn't tell you. And then you're checking your live and you're like, what the fuck is this? Why does it say I own all these shitty guys? And I'm like, oh, look at that. I have 9 lineups with all the cheapest IR players on the slate. Great.
I think that's usually when you get into a game that hasn't where they don't have the like if you win a ticket into a
ticket for tickets and then you forget you won a ticket and it's like oh they stealth put me in because
they do that
differently.
They intentionally give you all the injured players so that they don't accidentally give you a winning lineup. I think that's the logic.
Right. That's got to be their algorithm for sure. All right, John, take me through the numbers. Tampa Bay at Detroit.
So that 3.5, the home dog here, Detroit, catching a little bit of money, 55-45, so nothing too crazy. The tickets are just the flip of that, 55-45 in favor of Tampa. And on the total 47, we're getting under coming in 70-30 to the underside. Again, this is a game that the public is kind of shying away from. There's not a lot of interest in it. But from a DFS standpoint, again, Tampa's the team we always like. To me, that's the first thing you want to look for is who's Tampa playing. And they're playing a team this week who is another one of those teams that you kind of want to focus on. Who are they playing? So I don't know. This one's got the potential to just be a shootout, even no matter who quarterbacks for Detroit.
Geek, there's definitely a few guys that I'm looking to. You know me, I'm contrarian to a fault when it comes to this stuff. That's why my lineups, I want to put in a little bit of money and win a lot, which is the total wrong way to play. I get it. I'm that guy, but I'm learning from you guys. I am learning from you guys. I'm taking what I know from season long and I'm throwing it out the window. And I've been listening to you guys and I've been winning a couple of my cash games. But who are the players this week? Because this looks like a game I can get down with.
I mean, it's funny that you guys are excited about it because I feel like it's a sneaky game to get excited about. Sneaky in the sense that it's an obvious game to me in some senses, but on the negative side is, David Blow. So it's like, how much do I really want to feel confident in David Blow? But we have condensed offenses, people. Condensed offenses. Mike Evans is gone. Marvin Jones Jr. is gone. So now you have these two teams, each with one focal point wide receiver with Galladay and Godwin. You've also got some cheapos hanging out behind them, Bashard Perriman, and I don't know, who's the other guy for Tampa Bay? James Watson or Justin Watson? I don't know. Amendola. I think it's Justin Watson.
Yeah, it's Justin Watson, and then Bashard Perriman too is over there.
Well, Bashard Perriman is more of an obvious one, right? And Justin Watson being the third one. Justin Perriman had been playing, but now Bashard Perriman steps up into the number 2 role, and you've got this new guy Justin Watson popping up, who's interesting. For Tampa on the Detroit side, you got Amendola, and then I don't know.
Wait, can you go back to Tampa for a second? Could the number 2 guy end up being OJ Howard? He's had some good yardage totals.
Well, this is great mention. So that's a little sneaky thought process. Is like maybe with no number 2 that they actually feature OJ Howard in the past, and that's absolutely possible. So here's the beauty: we love Tampa games. Neither one of these teams have running backs that they really try to use anyway, but if they did, you can't really run that well against Tampa. That means Detroit is going to be out there throwing. Flip side, Tampa just always throws, so there's no difference there. But now we don't have to make a decision between Evans and Godwin. It's just Godwin out there doing his thing. And, Darius Slay, okay, but he hasn't been that great. I don't think he can stop Godwin. But if he does, it's these other two clowns that are going to get the work. And, I'll take some Bashard Perriman for $4,500. Let's keep in mind that Perriman has never been a good wide receiver, and he's been in the league for a while. But
I drafted that guy like every year in season long, 4.2 speed. He's like 6'1", 230 or something like that.
Never been good. Good.
I mean, he's always disappointed. Yeah,
never been good. Never. He's worse than Sammy Watkins because Sammy Watkins has the good game every year. He doesn't even do that. So. It's a really interesting game. I definitely think I want to stack it up. A Blow, Galladay stack seems like almost a must just because I don't think it's going to be popular. John, is it going to be popular? Are people going to stack Blow?
No.
I know what people do with Blow, and they sort it. They sniff it. They don't stack it. Forget it. See, Alan was so horrified he turned off his microphone and just doesn't want to be part of this anymore.
No, I'm what's it called? I want to be part of it. I was taking care of some business. All right. Moving on to the next game here.
You're Geek, stop talking about stacking Blow. Don't stack the Blow. Hey. Wait, who's on the toilet? I heard that.
I'm trying to. Can you,
is that your mom? No. Is that your? What are you on the toilet? Is that your mother?
It was like what was it? What was it? Wedding Crashers? It was like meatloaf, Ma.
Get the meatloaf. That's definitely your mom. Are you on the toilet? Are you going to the bathroom right now?
I'm trying to handle business at the same time, and that was good.
Oh my God!
Well, should we edit that out?
About snorting the blow, also, what the fuck is going on over there?
All right, here we go. Denver is going to KC. We got to get this back on the rails, John. And you're just the guy to do it. KC laying 10, total 46.5. Take me through it.
All right, yeah, KC. How many more touchdowns do you guys need to get to 35?
A lot.
Does he got to get 6 a game at this point?
We need 8 a game at this point.
All right, so we're going to say that's done. Yeah, but this is really unusual here that so much of the cash is coming in on the Denver side of this game. So you just don't anticipate that with Kansas City, but I mean, Denver coming off a big time win last week. That knocked me out of a monster Survivor, by the way. I was one of 6.
You got knocked out on that game?
I had the Texans.
Brutal.
And I was the only one left with Baltimore, which I would have had this week. Which
Never save in Survivor. Never.
No, I
didn't.
I didn't. It just worked out that way. I had multiple entries, so I would have had Baltimore here this week, which no one else had. So that was brutal. Just a side. That was a $28,000 pot as well.
Ooh,
so,
what's the entry on something like that?
It was $25, but there was 12. It was about almost 1,200 entries. So
all right, we want in that one next year.
You're in.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, yes, the cash coming in. I'm a little surprised at that myself. That the money's coming in on the Denver side, and it's actually the tickets are maybe 65-35, but the cash 90%. So what it's saying is not only is the public backing this, but some of the sharper people are on this game as well. So you don't often see that with such a big dog against a very public team like Kansas City has been with Mahomes. As far as the total, maybe this kind of gives you a little bit of insight into where they're thinking, because 70% of the money is coming in on the under in this game. And I think that's the only way Denver really covers. Another thing you want to look at when you look at these games, especially with the big totals, is, well, how does a team cover? And that's going to play into how you're going to play this from a fantasy standpoint, from a DFS standpoint. So likely if this game goes under, or if Denver covers this game, it's very likely that the game goes under. And if the game goes under, naturally we're probably less likely to want to have the Kansas City guys in stacks here. And regardless, the Denver players probably aren't as stackable if that's the what you're looking at as far as as far as giving yourself an idea of how to use the spread and how you use the lines. So when you get these large lines, they tend, obviously nothing's exact, but if you have these double-digit lines, especially with a low total, if the dog is going to cover, usually that means it's just a low-scoring game. And in a situation like this, I think that's the way Denver covers the game, is if they can play solid defense against Kansas City here. So
I'm sorry, I'm still laughing from before. That's why. But hey, John, just from your observation, though, do you think Drew Lock has staying power? Do you? I mean, not just do you like what you saw, but just based on like the mechanics. I mean, he looked mobile to me. He looked spry. He has like a little bit of that Josh Allen / the good parts of Jay Cutler to him.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, exactly. I like Cutler. I think I still might draft Cutler in a league if they put him in. I just fall in love with that guy's talent like every time, and he's sucked me in so many times. And
big arm.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But and smart, except dumb as a rock football wise, but smart outside of football.
So,
but Locke, I think he's got a lot of ability. It's just really it's early. I'd have to see a little bit more of him, but. Yeah, I mean, I like what I see so far. That's for sure.
Geek, I have to make a lineup decision between Baker Mayfield and Drew Lock in our Dynasty League to avoid having to pay the toilet bowl fine. So I think I'm going to do it, but this certainly seems like the matchup. Do you advise playing him at all? I know Kansas City, a couple of weeks ago, I was proactively picking up Kansas City's defense to play against Drew Lock in this game. Now I'm not so sure.
I mean, listen, what you have to understand is Kansas City's defense is pretty good. They're pretty good at home. So beware here. KC at home, it's a very loud place. It's very intimidating. And I don't expect Locke to come in and have a lot of success here. The other thing is Denver's defense is really good. They're holding opponents to below average scoring, just in general across all position groups. So, and then add on top of it, Kansas City doesn't have a lot of running game going on right now. It's just been a mess for them. So, at wide receiver, I think Tyreek Hill's finally kind of getting healthy again, but he hasn't done a whole lot the last couple of weeks. So, there's reasons for concern here. I don't like it. I don't like this game from either side of it. If Locke was at home, I didn't play Locke last week either, so mea culpa. But I don't really see much of a better situation here. I do think these young quarterbacks, he has a good game like that, expectations go up, and then they come out and they disappoint. So I would say buyer beware with Drew Lock. If it was me, I would play Baker Mayfield as dog shit as he's been. At least his matchup is very good. This is not a good matchup for Drew Lock. This is a tough road environment. KC has been way more vulnerable to the run than the pass. And if you wanted to really, get cute here, the play is probably much more Lindsey than any of these other guys. I don't like that play either, but that's the get cute play. I mean, I'm sure if I look at the Statsational model, it's going to say Denver 127 rushing yards. So there it is. So the model says rushing yards for Denver, and not a special passing day for Kansas City. And that's what I think as well. I don't play quarterbacks when they're 10-point favorites. So Mahomes is probably going to be off the table for me personally. I love Mahomes. He's Pat Mahomes. He's the man. He's awesome. He's blah, blah, blah. But I just don't play quarterbacks that are heavy favorites. So it just ruins it for me. And on the Denver side, I love Cortland Sutton. I think he's a great player. I think he's playable every single week. If he's cheap, you could, GPP shot, but it's not a good matchup. It's not a good positive environment for him.
Yeah, I Noah Fant, he went on IR. Did he go on? Is he done?
He's not on IR. He's questionable at the moment.
Okay. All right. Because he's a player I'm certainly interested in. Anytime a tight end even shows like a spark in year one, you're pretty excited about him. I knew he was an athlete, but I was totally off on him. I did not think he was going to be a player in the NFL. He was first round pick. I think he's, certainly going to be in the top 10 conversation and a popular sleeper for offseason best ballers. Hey guys, let's take a minute right here. The people are enjoying this content. We're giving it out to the general public. So, we don't want to do too much selling on here. But I want to talk to him about Beat the Bookie, the new offering from DFS Army. If you're a DFS Army VIP member, you should certainly come over and take a look. If you're just listening to this on the public feed, Beat the Bookie is our new sports wagering service. It's an advice service. We have coaches over there. One of them is right here today, Statsational. So, John, why don't you take the next 45 seconds to a minute and tell everyone why they should come over and join us at Beat the Bookie.
Well, I mean, if you're interested in betting on sports betting, and that's any of these major sports, and we keep adding new sports as we build the models for those sports. But if you are interested in sports betting, and as sports betting is becoming more popular and legalized in state after state after state, you really want to start getting, especially if you're new to this, you want to get a good foundation on how to do this properly and try to avoid a lot of the mistakes that certainly I did 20 plus years ago when I first started betting on sports. So you're getting the ability to learn from not only me, we've got two other coaches, Ryan and Anthony, in there who are killing it on hockey, basketball, college basketball. We got the bowl season coming up for college football, which Ryan has absolutely crushed the college football season. So if you want to get those bowl games, if you're in one of those college football pools, you're going to want to get in there and get Ryan's model so you can get a good idea as to who he likes for every single bowl game coming up. I've been doing really well with the NFL. So we've got all these major sports covered for you. You come in there, not only are we giving you some advice on who to bet, but how to bet it, how to properly manage your bankroll, everything that most people out there aren't going to teach you about betting. They're just going to give you a game and Lord knows where they came up with that game.
Right.
They're more about selling the game than they are giving you really sound advice. So we really stress the educational part of that website. Yeah,
that's well said. And John is has developed a course that'll be offered in there as well. And it doesn't matter if you have never sports gambled before. This website that we have developed here, or the service, is going to be beneficial just to learning about it as everything becomes legal. And if you have been sports gambling for years, you've had some mixed luck, this is a real great way to become a plus expected value player. So I highly recommend going over to dfsarmy.com, and in the top right corner is the Beat the Bookie tab. And Geek, tell us a little bit about, I heard you are building out a full blown out website to accompany this as well.
Well, it's not just a site. So what we're doing is, we started the service. We've got great educational materials. We've got John and Anthony and Ryan with models and picks and breakdowns and why, and a lot of teaching, beginner basic stuff, understanding of implied probabilities, all that great stuff. What we're going to supplement it with And obviously, this is a new industry. Sports gambling advice in the United States, as it's becoming legalized, I fully expect it to expand. And much like with DFS Army, we started out with a basic, hey, let's train people in what we're doing, how to do it, learn the process. But then let's continue to maintain our edge by coming out with various tools that we've come up with, various analytical tools, databases, historical databases, things like that. Really, I don't want to get too deep into it, other than that service will grow, and what we offer will grow with time. It's a new thing. If you're around, you need to get in there now, because much like with DFS Army, the price will grow as we add staff and people and data, and we never change the price for people who are in and have a subscription. So my strong suggestion is, if you're interested in sports gambling, and we play daily fantasy sports, and by the way, you get me in there in the NFL offseason with some MMA bets as well. I've been extremely profitable at that. So and we charge like a fraction of what any kind of BS Vegas tout would charge. It's not even in the same ballpark. We have we track the bets. You can see the records of all of these guys. I think Ryan's up 50 units for the year. Like, these numbers are ridiculous so far. Like, the numbers have been so good that literally we should be charging $1,000 a month for what's been given out, and other places would, but that's not what we're about. We're about teaching everything.
The money is just to keep the lights on and keep the service going. I mean, we all enjoy this so much, and we're really passionate about it, and it is a passion project. And if more people join, we can add more tools to more tools for it. So, and also right now, if you are listening on the general feed, you could use code BTB. That's Beat the Bookie, get 20% off. Or if you're already a DFS Army VIP member, just use DFS Army SB. So that's Sportsbook, DFS Army SB, and you'll get $20 off, which is even a few bucks more. All right, guys, you ready to continue on with week 15?
Let's do this.
Let's do this. We're moving through at a nice pace. John, Houston, who I think you're a little salty on since they knocked you out of the survivor pool last week. They're a joke, man. I hope they lose this game too to Tennessee. Tennessee is now the favorite, laying the full field goal, 3 points, total 49.5. I want to see what happens if Tennessee gets into the playoffs. Are you with me on that?
What, do I want to see Tennessee win?
Yeah, they used to be a no-watch TV. Now I think like they're must-watch TV with A.J. Brown and with Derrick Henry.
I'm not as excited about Tennessee as far as must-watch. But listen, I watch every damn game anyway, so I don't know.
You hear this? He's a grizzly, bitter NFL watcher at this point.
It becomes a thing where
he watches it.
I don't care about the matchup. I watch angrily the Monday night games because I can't stand the guys doing the broadcast. But other than that,
Booger and what's the guy's name? Taz or Tess?
Tess.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's brutal.
Yeah,
it's brutal. So I can't even listen to those guys anymore.
It's an upgrade from Witten, though.
But Booger was on the sideline last year with Witten in the booth. At least Witten was terrible as well. But
at least they don't have Booger in that crane or whatever.
The crane, that was brutal. But anyway, on to the game. This is about a 50-50 split, which I kind of anticipated here on this game. I think the number is about right. It's just really, you know how this is. It's a week in, week out league. Houston goes in, they dominate New England, and I'm thinking I had no choice but to take them in the Survivor, just because how can I pass up on a 10-point favorite when that was really the only big favorite that I had left at this point in the season? So you can't really pass up on it. But the fear was, you're going to have that letdown after that big game, and they certainly had the letdown in a big time way last week. So I'm not ready to jump off Houston. I'm not a huge Houston fan, but I'm not saying, I'll give them a pass on that game. Sometimes those games, once they start to get out of hand, they just really snowball. And they did get back in it. Watson actually did well for me in some fantasy stuff because they got down early.
Miraculous late game comeback.
Well, he's definitely one of the top 3 or 4 QBs that you'd want in, if he's one of the top 3-4 players in the league probably at this point.
No doubt. So
he's one of those guys that can, single-handedly bring you back at any point.
And then on the total, we're looking at a 50-point total here. So is this I think it is the highest total.
But I hate to say by far, but
yeah, relatively speaking, this is because, it seemed like every game was a 50-point total. Now we're not getting as many of them popping up. But yeah, who would have thought Tennessee would start seeing 50-point totals, right? Tennessee was one of those teams that I think that's what you're kind of alluding to here, Alan, is like all of a sudden Tennessee's fun to watch. When Mariota, they were just drowning.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing to see that New England had a shot at A.J. Brown and they drafted N'Keal Harry. You got to wonder who's doing the scouting over at New England for the wide receivers. It's just been one miss after the other, you know?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I don't think, just to touch on the New England wide receivers, I mean, there's a lack of trust right now with Brady and his wide receivers outside of Edelman, which is why Edelman's been the only guy that you really can use on that team. But just quick on the total on this game, the over, it's 50, and it's not shying. No one's shying away from betting the highest total on the board to the over side. 90% of the cash coming over. So, Geek, what do you think about this one? I've got just a quick note. I mean, I've got this one in the no dark green, but a lot of green and yellowish green. So I'm expecting some yardage.
It's not super green though, right?
Yeah, well, it's not super green.
For those watching us for the first time, explain what you mean about the green and the yellow.
And Geek likes to refer to the model that I have posted up on. It's on Beat the Bookie, and I've got a model that will give me a projection on the yardage from a rushing standpoint. This is just team yardage, rushing, passing, the total yardage and score. So we're looking at, and I just color code it, the higher the yardage or score, the darker the green, as you might be familiar with Excel. And then of course, when it's red, that's the lower numbers. So when I quickly pan through, I'm looking for those green games. And this game is like green, but not like the dark green. So it's got a lot of, we're like in the upper five in like a lot of these categories as far as expected yardage from a passing standpoint. Just for instance, I've got the 270 yards on the Houston side as expected passing. And on the rushing side, both teams are like 120 yards. So there's some fantasy goodness potential in this game, obviously with a 50-point total.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. It's going to be a game that's going to be heavily targeted for fantasy purposes, and I want to promote your model a little bit better than you just did, because it's not just a prediction of, it's not just a linear. And we have something like this on the DFS Army Research Station that's doesn't show quite as neatly as this does, but same concept. Like what it does is it says, hey, in an average situation, this team would rush for this many yards. And then it says, in an average situation, this team would allow this many yards rushing, and sometimes it's above or below the league average. And when you combine those two numbers, you get this kind of final number for how many yards. Like this team rushes for 50 yards over average. This team allows 10 yards over average. All of a sudden, you get 60 yards over.
Well, it's over. Just to correct you slightly, what it is, what goes into it is, it's over the team that they play's average. So in other words, if you rush for 100 yards against a team that gives up 80 yards, you're going to get a lot more credit than if you rush for 100 yards against a team that gives up 120 yards, right? So if it takes into account your opponent. And when I was saying earlier, when I look for Tampa right away, I've got Tampa. What I'll do is add up the how well you do above average against from a passing standpoint on both offense and defense, and Tampa's like the number one team when you combine their defense being poor to the pass, and their pass being good, and coincidentally they're playing the number 2 team, so that's why that game looks really interesting. Yeah,
we like that one. But all right, so bringing it back to Houston, Tennessee, highest game point, highest total on the slate. You're going to have a lot of excitement about this game. Obviously, listen, Derrick Henry is doing incredible things. It's like a fucking broken record where about week 14 or 13 every year he starts to go bananas, and it's happening again. And it's like, I just want to read off his totals, and these are DraftKings totals, which should not be as great for a non-PPR type of asset, but yet 26.9, 27.6, 32.5, 36.1, 24.9. So this is his last 5 games going back to actually week 9, and they are spectacular scoring games. The salary for Henry has exploded. He's got multiple touchdowns in most of those games, which is very, very unusual. We're talking about a guy who puts up 2 touchdowns in most of those games, like 4 out of 5, or, it's like a crazy number. So be aware of what Derrick Henry's doing. Now, if you need a reason to fade him, on DraftKings, he's very, very expensive. He's approaching Christian McCaffrey numbers. I mean, he's not quite there yet, but he's getting very close. He's got the hammy thing going on. I don't think it's a big deal, but at least it's a little something to give you a sniff about maybe I should be concerned with this guy. But outside of that, I mean, Houston, and the third thing is John's model would have shown a lot more yardage. And this is a point I wanted to actually bring up in this game. This is normally something I might save for a more in-depth look. But John, the model is showing a number that seems almost low for what Derrick Henry has been doing. The model is showing, and it also seems almost low considering that the opponent, Houston, is giving up the 27 most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So I wanted to address that and explain why a team that's giving up the 20, just because they're giving up the 27th most team, and why that number is not very good. Like that little number you see on DraftKings opponent rank, that is how many fantasy points per game they allow to the position. Well, that doesn't account for how many yards per game to the running back position are being allowed by Houston. All it's saying is running backs are just scoring a lot. Now, that could be because there's an exorbitant amount of touchdowns being scored by running backs against Houston. That could be because running backs are doing well via the pass against Houston. It's not a direct measure that we want to just take at its base and be like, oh, they suck against the run. What tells you a team sucks against the run is when they give up a lot of yards to running backs. So the end point of what I was just saying is, just because they're ranked 27 doesn't mean they suck completely against the run. Again, I'm just trying to find a devil's advocate way of saying maybe you don't have to play Derrick Henry as much as we all want to. There are some causes enough for concern, because normally you'd look at a guy who has been doing what he's been doing, going up against his 27th ranked rush defense and go, play, right? Easy play. But there are some reasons for concern here. But all of that being said, let's talk about A.J. Brown and what he did last week. Very low volume. Still not a whole lot going on there in terms of volume for him. But 7 targets, but he put up 36 fantasy points. Once again, price, salary exploded on DraftKings. It's $6K right now. A little cheaper, relatively speaking, on FanDuel if I'm going to play him. It's either going to be as a part of game stacks, which is always great. We contain the nuclear chalk explosions just to these lineups that are built around this game. Or he's much more playable on FanDuel as sort of just a building block kind of a piece, because he's way cheaper. And we want to pay down really at wide receiver this week based on the matchups for the running backs and how many great ones there are that we want to pay up for. So A.J. Brown, interesting. DeAndre Hopkins, interesting. We don't know if Fuller is going to be back. With no Fuller in there, I'm interested in Hopkins. When Fuller is in the game, I am not interested in Hopkins. That's how it is. Unfortunately, with Hopkins, it's just that's how his fortunes go. Last week when Fuller was out, Hopkins wound up being a great play, wound up putting up 30 points. But when Fuller was going to be in, Hopkins doesn't do as well. So that's important to keep an eye on. And I mean, that's about it for the passing game pieces for both of these teams. I guess if Fuller was in, we might have some interest there. Again, for me, it's more of a game stack piece. Fuller always hurt, so I can't really trust him to get through a full game. Kenny Stills, just a disappointing player constantly, so I don't really want to fuck with him too much. And there's nothing else going on the Tennessee side that I could really see. No Jonnu Smith for me, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, in PPR, Duke Johnson's been coming on a little bit. I don't know where he's priced on the PPR sites, but I'm just taking a quick look at his PPR numbers. The last 2 weeks, he's had 20 fantasy points and 11 fantasy points. I mean, that's something that's probably not going to win you much money unless he was super cheap. Yeah,
don't trust this. Carlos Hyde is still the main back. Duke Johnson is still playing the same exact role he always does, and he's 4,100. He's cheap enough that's okay. But we're not getting. This is like when an NBA, when a player is supposed to be starting. John, you'll know very well about what I'm talking about. We're thinking that Jim Schmo is about to be starting, right? So fuck, he's 3K all in, right? Or Patty Mills. Patty Mills is a good name. Starting all in. Then it's like, no, it turns out he's not starting. It's this other dude. And then the thought is like, well, Patty Mills is still an okay play, but now he's just the same old shitty play that he always is. Like, I don't play him ever. Why? Because he's a backup point guard that's going to get 20 minutes. No, I'm not playing him. So that's what it is with like Duke Johnson. If he was going to be thrust into some role that was like different, and all of a sudden he's going to be getting the carries, and they figured out, Carlos Hyde's a fucking plotter. Let's run this guy out. All the bullshit we said in the preseason about Duke Johnson finally getting a chance, and that was going to happen. Great. Let's fucking load up. But right now it's just the same old Duke Johnson.
The only thought is that, and I don't want to harp on Duke Johnson too much, we'll move on, is that Deshaun Watson did say he proactively wants to get him the ball. He wasn't getting the ball enough, but your point is well taken. John, a game that you wrote up in Beat the Bookie, and I don't want to give out the secret sauce, but I loved your analysis on Jacksonville at Oakland, and Oakland is laying 6.5 points, total of 45.5. I thought your analysis, and if you do want some of that analysis, you can come over to DFS Army, Beat the Bookie, and check it out. John writes up his favorite games of the week. Break us through this one, but don't give away too much of the secret sauce.
Yeah, well, the game is 6.5, like you said, just teetering under that key 7 number. And Oakland is getting 83% of the cash, 17% of the money going on the Jacksonville side. So really heavily bet, and the tickets kind of are comparable here. So no real difference as far as ticket sizes on the Oakland side or the Jacksonville side on this game. So when we go over to the total, I've got 45.5, and the money is coming in really heavily, 90% of it, and the tickets almost match that coming in on the over side. So, again, not shocking. Oakland's been giving up a lot of points. Jacksonville's been giving up a lot of points. The market really expecting the offenses to do well here. If I take a quick look at what I had on my model, I'm at the. I've actually got this at 48 points. Potentially projected, and again, we talk about those green numbers. I got quite a few green numbers on this one as well. Geek.
Green will make you green in your pockets. Will make you the green. That's why I look at the green. But why is it green? Because you want the green. You always want the green. I love the fucking green. That's all I want is a little more green.
Bitcoin's not green.
Fuck the Bitcoin, man. If it's not green, it ain't for me. Give me the real cold hard cash.
All right,
so let's talk about this game.
The society is going to be going. It can't stand another financial collapse. Put a little bit.
No collapses. All we need is the cage.
A little bit into Bitcoin. Go ahead.
I got a little Bitcoin. Because I'm a gambler. I'm a degenerate gambler, so I have Bitcoin. And now my Bitcoin goes up, so I don't even fucking gamble it. I just hold it and I make money. All right, let's talk about Oakland. John, 150 yards, man. Who's going to get it? Is this?
Well, that's the problem. This is Jacobs. Jacobs look like he's going to be back. So
do we think he's going to be back with fractures, whatever the fuck is going on?
Yes, he's playing.
I think he's playing.
He's trending towards playing. I think he could be the overall number 1 RB this week. No,
I mean, if he's fully healthy, he wasn't even in a consideration for me. They said fractures of spine or. Well, I don't know what the fuck he had going on.
He's leaning towards playing, like John just said.
Didn't he have a fractured elbow or shoulder?
Shoulder.
Man, fractures. You would think you wouldn't play for a bit, man.
I've had many shoulder surgeries. I don't know how any of these guys do it.
Let me share a story. I slept funny about 6 months ago. I can't fucking move my left arm. It's been 6 months. And I slept funny one night. Like, what the hell is going on in this world? This guy fractures his shoulders. Like, I'll be back next week. I can't even do this is it. Look, that's as high as it goes. You want to reach for the sky? This one goes to here. That's it. I'm done. This is not me. This is me pointing to the sky with my hand. That's it. That's all I've got.
I got no sympathy, man. I've been dealing with shoulder pain for a long time.
I slept funny. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't know what's going on. All right. Talk about the game. See, I get out of control. You can't let me tell a story, man. I start to lose my shit, man. I just go.
I like the story though.
Just go off the rails. Yeah. Yes, I like this game. Now, do I like Derek Carr? I never liked Derek Carr. Let me make it very clear. But last week, cheapest guy, 20 fantasy points. He got you there. We talked about him as cash play. I said it's gross, but I'm going to do it. And he got you there, 20 fantasy points last week. One of the better pay down options for sure. Although they were great. Not less paid down options with Breeze and Winston, but and Garoppolo, but he got you there, right? Minshew hasn't done much, hasn't looked great. No DJ Shark, but that leaves us with a very interesting what I call turd stacks. Okay, what's a turd stack? Shitty players that you normally don't want to fuck with, but when you combine them, they're so cheap that if they go off, the rest of your lineup can be amazing. So if I take Gardner Minshew and I stack him with D.D. Westbrook with no DJ Shark, okay, at 4,600 on DraftKings, I am getting a stack of 2 players that can each easily put up 20 fantasy points for $10K. Okay, so that is a 10x 40, 10, 4x minimum return, a likely return, I would say, on this pairing, and potential for more. So garbage stacks, duty stacks, turd stacks. You can add in Chris Conley, who's the other guy, for a full blast team stack. He's 3,600 on DraftKings. And now you've combined 3 players that I believe, if you agree that Jacksonville is going to do a lot of throwing, which we don't know. There's only 2 guys he could throw to, Westbrook and Conley, outside of Fournette. And maybe I want to include Fournette in this whole grouping. I doubt it, but why not? But the point is, you can get a very cheap stack here on a game with a very high total that looks really, really good, that no one is going to be on, because people like to play higher price guys. They just do. So really interesting from that point of view. I love Fournette in this game as well. He's one of these stud running backs in a great spot this week. There's a few of them. I don't know which one to go with yet. But you mentioned Jacobs. If he's playing, I mean, you've seen what running backs have been doing to Jacksonville, and it's not pretty. It looks ugly. The only thing where I'm having a hard time is really discovering passing game pieces for the Raiders that I like a lot. I mean, I just don't like them very much. I found Darren Waller to be a little bit overpriced for most of the season. I think this is a good spot for him. But again, he remains a little bit overpriced. Tyrell Williams, man, what happened to your boy, the Gazelle?
I don't know, man. He started off hot and then it just faded. I thought, like, finally, I traded him. I traded for him for Demaryius Thomas and Demaryius Thomas's late peak, and everyone, I thought I finally hit gold. And
that's your boy.
Yeah,
like, what the fuck? He's not good.
I thought he would have been a great Jet.
He's more of Malcolm Floyd than he is Alshon Jeffrey, even. Like he's giving the Malcolm Floyd vibe on this offense.
I mean, that's a great comparison.
Isn't he Malcolm Floyd?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is he doing?
That's an insult, but it's an accurate insult.
It's who he is. So anywho, good game all around to get involved with. I don't think there's gonna be a ton of ownership on the passing game pieces for Jacksonville, and I think both of those guys. And John, I mean, is D.D. Westbrook like a cash game lock? Do we have to lock him into cash with no DJ Shark out? Like, is this a must play in a week where we want to pay up at wide receiver?
With no Shark, he very well might be. I mean, you're talking about, was it 4,600?
He's 4,600. He's been
good. That's very well going to come. Yeah, he's going to be just looking at early in the week.
7.5 targets a game.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a very strong cash play selection this week, especially without Shark.
I haven't even looked at our projections yet to see like what these guys are getting, but I would be surprised if I checked it right now and this guy wasn't one of the higher points per dollar values on the slate, or at some point that didn't happen once Shark was legitimately ruled out of the game, which I'm not sure if he's been. D.D. Westbrook carries a questionable tag, so we'll see about that. But as of right now, both these guys carry a questionable tag until somebody, just a little kind of pro tip, until somebody's actually, like, when you're looking at projections, when a guy is carrying a questionable tag, they're still being projected as if they're going to play. So like the projection on D.D. Westbrook will not pop until DJ Shark is actually ruled out. So sometimes you got to use your brain.
That's a really great. That's a really interesting point. I want to put a little bold on that, underline it, that if you fell asleep during our podcast or you're listening to it in the background, Geek, say that just one more time.
This is really important because everybody's using projection systems now. Anybody sharp, everybody's playing. People who are sharp players are all using projection systems. And until a player is actually ruled out, like they get the out number, right? Until that happens,
could be on Sunday morning.
Could be Sunday, and this is why you have to be paying attention to breaking news. This is much more prevalent in NBA on an NBA slate, where until they're ruled out, like the numbers change massively and very, very quickly. And everything in the edge in NBA is all about being on top of late breaking news, which is why at DFS Army we literally have full-time people monitoring the shit, manually making these adjustments, so we don't have to wait for like other sites where they wait for projection systems to kind of like come through and data providers to kind of send all this information. We're on top of that shit so fast. That's our edge over the competition. That's why we are better than other sites. But when it comes to NFL, I want people to be aware, when you're looking at projections, if a guy is questionable, you're like, this guy's probably not fucking playing, but he's showing is questionable. The other guy that's affected by him is not projecting as if the guy is out. Right now, if I check D.D. Westbrook, for example, I see that Shark is questionable. D.D. Westbrook will project as if Chark is playing.
Yeah, no,
So it's going to be lower. So
can I make one?
Change. Go ahead.
If I can make one quick comment on that, not only do you guys update it really quickly, but if you're in the Slack chats, someone's going to let you know that it has been updated, which is almost as important as the update, because sometimes you're looking at it and you're like, has this been adjusted? Like, the injury, or that the player's out, but you don't know if it's been updated in the model.
Yeah,
has it adjusted? And once someone tells you that, then you go, okay, no, now I know I could get in. Otherwise you're sitting there, some of these other sites, if you don't have a before and an after, you don't know if they actually made an adjustment or not. Right. So 100%. The nice thing is to be in the Slack, and then and you're not sitting there with your dick in your hand wondering,
people, it's funny. People think like, oh, pros do other things. You know what I do to play NBA? I'm in DFS Army Slack, just like every other subscriber at DFS Army. I'm in the Slack. I'm monitoring the breaking news channel. I'm monitoring the Coach's Notes channel. I'm watching those things, and I'm hitting refresh on the Dom station whenever news hits. It's been adjusted. Boom, hit refresh. All right, what just popped?
So who's sitting there actually putting those new projections in? Do you have a guy doing that?
Yeah, that's Boomer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a full-time person who is a full-time person.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So
that's how important I find that to be.
So if you are just listening on the public feed, what a great opportunity to go into DFS Army now, become a VIP member. You can use promo code Geek, Statsational, or Says, get 20% off. Join us for basketball season, the end of playoff season for NFL. Amazing stuff. John, I blinked when I saw this one. I couldn't believe this was the real line. Cleveland is going to go into Arizona. And who the hell is Cleveland to be laying 2.5 points on the road? On the road, even if it's Arizona. Total 47.5.
I think you made that same comment when they were like a big favorite against Cincinnati, or wasn't it? Was it Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago? You're like, who the hell's Cleveland?
Yeah,
and they didn't cover that game. Yeah. Road fair.
Let me ask you a phenomenon, John, before you get too deep, because it's about this game. I want to ask you about a phenomenon. So, does it happen that a team like Arizona is coming off of like a stretch of brutal matchups, right? And it's just brutal matchups, like against teams that they were never expected to well. And I'll read them off: San Francisco, Rams, Pittsburgh, all spectacular defenses, right? So now, does it psychologically set in like, these guys didn't look that great against San Francisco, and they got smashed by the Rams, and they lost to the lowly Steelers, even though the Steelers defensively have been really, really good, like elite. These are 3 elite defenses, right? And after that string of games, is it like seeping into the handicap that these guys kind of suck now? Like, is that what's going on here?
It does. It certainly can happen. For my numbers though, Cleveland actually is a little bit better here than Arizona, and I think probably by about that factor. It's probably about a 3-point spread there.
Even on the road.
Okay. Yeah. So, and that's, Cleveland's had its moments here this year. So is Arizona. I mean, they played really well against San Francisco twice. But on the whole, just looking at the numbers I have, we're not expecting that much from Arizona in this game. But that does happen where the perception, a lot of what you're doing when you're betting on these games is playing against perception. It's why I don't know the exact number. My model picks at least twice as many underdogs as I do favorites, because you tend to get more value on the dog side of the game, and especially teams that are coming off of multi-week poor performances. We put way too much into one game, and I could go off on all of that stuff, but yeah, we hold, and not just one game, the game that was just played. It's why those Monday night games,
recency bias, bias,
especially
and everybody watches the
Monday game.
Yeah,
that's it. The Monday game,
any national
Sunday
game, Thursday game too in effect.
Yeah, it's why generally it's hard to get. Usually the books won't have any line on the two teams that are playing on Monday night for the following week, because they're going to adjust that line. That game should really, outside of injuries, shouldn't really play that big of a factor. It shouldn't change the line all that much, but they'll wait sometimes for that Monday, or really all the time, they'll wait for that Monday night game to be over before they'll post a line on either one of those two teams' games the following week. So, the recency bias is a huge thing, and it's something that when you're a handicapper, you need to try to avoid yourself. when you're looking at these things. But if we look at it, where's the money going? As much as you might think there's value on the Arizona side, the public is on the Cleveland side here at the -2.5. They're going to keep jumping in on Cleveland. We know now Beckham
Can this thing
Jr.
go up to 3? You think this thing will go up to 3?
I think it can. So I think if you like Arizona, I think you can wait on this one, just because I'm not seeing anything sharp on Arizona. That would be the only thing that would move it. It's always hard to get onto the key number and off the key number, so it's going to take a lot. But I think I think you're taking less of a risk. You don't mind getting the 2. Like, you're risking getting this game at +2. If you like Arizona, you're risking getting this game at +2 for the benefit of getting it at 3, and there's much more of an advantage being at the 3 number as opposed to the 2. That 3 is a very key number in the NFL for obvious reasons, the way the scoring goes. But as I was saying, we get about 70% of the money coming in on Cleveland. So that is what is prompting me to say there's a possibility here that we could get the 3. If you look at the total, 48, the money is overwhelmingly coming in on the over, and that makes a lot of sense here. The Arizona games tend to, especially in the games that they've been in competitively, those games I think have all gone over. The games that they've been close have gone over. So 90% of the money coming in on the overside of this game. And again, this is a game that has some potential for DFS. We're seeing, I know Odell Beckham shockingly has become a problem now for Cleveland. Who would have ever seen that coming?
Will he start for Cleveland week 1 next year?
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
yeah.
If New England offered him offered Cleveland first round pick and N'Keal Harry, did they do it? Who says no?
Does Cleveland do it?
Who says no?
Yeah, Cleveland does it. Yeah, Cleveland does it.
Right. So they take N'Keal Harry and a first for Odell.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm making that deal.
Okay. And for New England, it's a great deal too.
New England should have gotten Odell Beckham. They should have just done it.
So now they can get him for, basically what's
actually, let me correct that. They should have just kept Antonio Brown.
Yeah, but I mean, that's obvious, but they didn't want
that was bullshit. Bullshit. Yeah. All right, let's talk about this game. A very exciting game. This is one of those games that were the ones that were in my head when I was doing the intro, talking about how this could be a high-scoring week. Look at perception, reality. No one wants to play Baker Mayfield, ever. He just fucking had a shitty year, but this is Arizona, the team where you go when you want to get right, giving up the most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. That has continued, and it continues now. Part of the reason that happens because Arizona is pretty good at scoring and keeping these games close, and they're very bad at defense. So what you end up with is situations very much like Tampa, where you have these back and forth high-scoring affairs. I don't know if they're such a play-quick team like they were supposed to be at the beginning of the year. They're not a slow team, but they definitely are not a lean on the run, slow it down kind of the game kind of team. That's for sure. So, yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield, a little spendy on DraftKings at 6,400. Almost too much to palate outside of a game stack, really, for Baker Mayfield at 6,400. I mean, I don't have my FanDuel screen open, but I mean, that's a lot for Baker Mayfield. A little spendy, but he could be paired up very nicely with Landry. I think Odell Beckham certainly is in the discussion for a bounce back game, although Odell hasn't had a good game, period. End of sentence. But at some point he will. So Landry has been more volume for the last few weeks, but that can swing back to Odell very, very easily. So I like those two guys. I don't like the running game generally for Cleveland. There's too many people involved in it, and I don't like that sort of a mix. The way that the salary is for Nick Chubb, it does not account for him only getting half of the carries or 60%. It counts for him being a workhorse. Kareem Hunt, no, I'm not playing him. Miraculous good scores every single week on low volume. That's not my thing. I'll wait for that to fail before I play it. It's just not my style. By the way, John, you said again at the beginning of the show about how you have a style and you should just stick to it. Don't start chasing shit that happened last week. And I'm going to tell you my style. Like I do this on the Players Club. I do this in the VIP pods, but It's important to know I don't play heavily favored quarterbacks. I don't play running backs that are expensive that are only going to get half the touches or less. I just don't do it. Not in most formats. It's just not the approach to the game that I'm going to use. Again, outside of maybe in 150 lineup MME where you get a couple of shares of anyone. But when I'm handcrafting a lineup, I'm not clicking on these guys. Now, the wide receiver I like the most in this game is Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk reminds me a little bit of, if you go back a few weeks and you think about where Devontae Parker and DJ Moore were. You were getting them right around 4,800, 5K. But then you look at their game logs and you're like, this guy gets like 10 targets every single week. What the fuck is going on here? And it's just people don't really know that, or there was some random reason. Now, I can forgive Christian Kirk for getting shut down by Jalen Ramsey a couple weeks ago and only put up 5 points. I can forgive him for getting shut down by Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman. What's this? Remember that? Richard Sherman? You know what I'm talking about, John?
What are you talking about?
Like Richard Sherman, the greatest meme of all time is Richard Sherman watching the final play of the Super Bowl.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then the face. It was the best. I can't believe it.
I think the best Richard. I mean, top 5 Richard Sherman moment is him trolling Crabtree. Also, right?
No, I mean, listen, I love the troll, but I use the Richard Sherman face as a regular.
Right. Okay.
All right. So that's the
Hold on. Do it again. Let me screenshot.
No, don't you screenshot it.
All right.
There's enough of me. You got enough screenshots to hold against me.
Oh my God.
Right. So
I can hold. So are you anything else to wrap up this game?
No, play Christian Kirk. And wait, gotta let me talk about the Dreezy. Okay, got to talk a little bit about the Dreezy. I've been playing him every week. I know he hasn't done much, but he continues. Kenyon Drake, he continues to get. Now, this isn't a core piece. Let's not go crazy. He's not getting a ton of volume, but he's cheap, and he continues to get most of the carries for the team. We're all afraid of Chase Edmonds. We're all afraid of David Johnson. See, I got names just swirling.
He scored a touchdown last week.
He scored it. Who? David Johnson?
Yeah,
but look at his volume.
Oh, I mean, it was like 1 catch.
Yeah, he had 4 touches or 5 touches in the game. So Chase Edmonds had like 2 touches, whereas Kenyon Drake had 14 touches. So Kenyon Drake remains the top guy. Again, the same series of difficult defenses that have affected Kyler Murray and I believe recency bias against this team have also affected Kenyon Drake. He hasn't done well the last few weeks. Not terrible, but not very well. This is a potential GPP only because it's speculative. GPP only, but a potential interesting spot for the Dreezy.
All right. Yeah. I mean, that said it all. I
love Kyler Murray as well, by the way, just to be clear.
Has not produced huge the last couple of weeks, but yeah, I mean, just he looks like he's in control of that offense. Last 3 games, guys. John, Minnesota is going to LA Chargers, kind of a home game. Plus 3 points. They're getting the field goal. This one is begging you to take Minnesota. I think I see through it a little bit. Total of 44.5. I know the Chargers are heartbreakers, but I am going to see if this number goes up a little bit. If not, I'm happy taking the Chargers plus 3. It's a dangerous game, but I'm in.
The Chargers are one of those teams that are they are better than the record. They've had some odd things happen to them this year. So the record is not quite indicative of just how well they've played. Let's say, not that they're one of the upper echelons teams, but they're better than the record. And then when we look at this, yeah, I think on the perception here is that the Chargers are closer to what their record says. So Minnesota, obviously seen as the better team here, is catching 85% of the cash, similar on the tickets. And that's not surprising to me at all. So and they've had this ability, Rivers has, to come on strong down stretches before. So it wouldn't shock me to see the Chargers win this game outright at home with that minimal home field advantage that they do have. But Minnesota, the Chargers here on the total, 44.5, 69% of that is coming in on the over. We've got 31% of the money coming in on the under. So the public looking at this game as a potential over with that relatively small line or I should say low total. Yeah, I just want to look at mine because I've got a kind of a gut feeling on this one myself. Yeah, when I look at it, what I have here, and I kind of suspected that was the Chargers are a fairly decent option from the passing standpoint. I think that's kind of like why I like the model, and being that I do it, I kind of get to obviously I know what goes into it, so I had an inclination. But a lot of times you're going to look at it, and your perception is going to be Minnesota's defense. Man, they're really strong. There's no way you're going to pass on them. But there's the potential here to put up some points on the passing side. Obviously, we know Minnesota can run the ball, so that's always a good play. But yeah, I wouldn't throw this game out totally from a DFS standpoint.
Geek, who are the players? Austin Eckler putting up a mega throbber last week. Are we going back to the well against a tough defense?
Let's just kind of be clear on it. Minnesota very good against the run, not as good against the pass this year. So the path of least resistance against the Vikings is, as John said, via the pass, not the run. Very different from last week for the Chargers, where they had a very good running game matchup. Now, no, I'm not going back to Austin Eckler. I continue, much like Kareem Hunt, to find him to be way overpriced compared to the volume that he's getting in this offense. That doesn't mean that he's not crushing. I see it. I'm not blind. But last week for his 37 mega throbber, his 37 points, it was 8 carries and 4 receptions, 12 touches. Was he explosive? Yes. Can I count on that every single week? No. Now, that said, he's been doing it week after week after week after week. I mean, he's been very consistent. So, I mean, bad on me. I haven't been playing him, but I'm not getting off that train now. I'm sticking with it through thick and thin. The path of least resistance for the Chargers should be through the air. They don't have a lot going on in the passing game. Mike Williams is an interesting spot. He'll probably see Xavier Rhodes if Xavier Rhodes is even playing. Xavier Rhodes is like a plus matchup. You want to figure out who's playing against him and use him. I really like Hunter Henry on that side of the game as well. I want to give a warning. And my warning here is about Dalvin Cook. So I think the biggest takeaway in this game is a warning about Dalvin Cook. And the warning is this. There are signs that the Vikings are looking to keep this guy, quote unquote, fresh for the playoffs. What does that mean? That means that there's a great chance that even in a great game script and all of this, that we're not going to see workhorse. Last week, whatever, Matheson came in, the Vikings were smashing. We expected that. We expected Detroit, even a spectacular matchup for the running game. We expected that Dalvin Cook, there was danger in him, that he would not be out there for all of the touches, that Alexander Mattison would come in and get a lot of the work.
Yeah, I mean, would you play him this week then? I mean,
well, here's the deal. Listen, this is important because last week was a plus 9.5, 13.5 point favorite situation. It was obvious that was going to happen. This week is different. It's a close game, right? But I still think that we're going to see a lot of Alexander Mattison in this game, and that is my warning to you. That I'm not expecting. That doesn't mean Dalvin Cook can't have a spectacular game. He absolutely can. He doesn't need 30 touches to get there, but the floor on Dalvin Cook is lower than it was like in week 4 or 5 when he was getting all of the touches for his team in a close game. Because now I guarantee you that I don't want to guarantee, listen, nothing's 100%, but I pretty much guarantee you that Mattison is going to be in there, spelling him. He'll get his 10 touches as well. Maybe more. Last week, Mattison got 16 touches in the game. That was a blowout. But when I rewatched the tape, just to be sort of part of the reason I watch tape, people ask me, what do you do when you watch tape? One of the things I look for is, when is the backup running back in the game? Did he come in the fourth quarter and just dominate in a smash game, or was he there throughout? And Alexander Mattison was in there in the first quarter too. Like, he was just being mixed in fairly regularly, which tells me that the coaching staff is making a conscious effort to not overwork Cook. And I think the injury a couple of weeks ago has something to do with it. You saw it. He was hurt, but not really. He said, I could come right back. They said, no, rest it up. It's cool. So that concerns me. I have him going in some playoff teams in the season long. I'm certainly playing him there. I'm not taking him out. But to pay $8,900 when there are spectacular spots, Christian McCaffrey, very, very close in price, some cheaper guys locked in for 30 touches, it's dangerous. And that is my warning on this game. So I think I spent my time on this one really talking more about a warning on Dalvin Cook and why he's not a lock and load.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so I want to be able to use Alexander Madison just once this year. So I'm going to put him in a DFS lineup and hope it works out. Probably won't. I'll light that $5 bill on fire. John, San Francisco, what a win last week in New Orleans. Atlanta's coming to town this week. San Fran laying the big number. 11 points, total 47. Total is 47 points. Could this be a letdown spot? Is the sharp play maybe going for Atlanta, taking the big number?
You certainly could see a letdown in this spot. They shouldn't, because I mean, there's just so much on the line with every one of these games that they have left. So I don't anticipate that happening. But very interesting. I think the sharper money right now is coming in on the Atlanta side. We're seeing 67%, about 2-1 on the money here on the Atlanta side, but more tickets, slightly more than 50% of the tickets coming in San Francisco. So, would not be shocked in this game to see it a little bit closer than the experts think. Atlanta has been better in the last month or so, so would not be crazy to see that. And now we're seeing a 47 total on a San Francisco game when this was like, San Francisco was looking like one of the more dominant defenses, in the league. And then they go and give up a ton of points last week and, amazingly wind up outscoring New Orleans, who's been playing really well, really good defense. You had two of the probably top 4 or 5 defenses in the league in an absolute just up and down scoring at will basketball type of style game. But when we look at the cash that's coming in, it's almost all coming in on the over. So really interesting. Atlanta's defenses look better. Yeah, Atlanta's defenses look better. It's 90% of the money's coming in.
Dude, I would be all over the under on this game. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I feel it's the most obvious underplay. I'm going to play it. I don't even like the sports. But wait, I got to wait for your model or somebody and beat the book.
I've got it. I've got it at exactly at 47. So I think it's the right number. And I understand, I've got the line a little higher, but I totally understand why the 11. I think that line, as you can see, with the money coming in on Atlanta now, if you made that line any higher, obviously there'd be even more money coming in on the Atlanta side. So I think they've got it priced right. We might even see this game come down to 10 by the time we go off. But yeah, I could understand why you like the under, and I think my gut feeling is on the underside to this one as well.
It's crazy. I'm shocked. I'm legitimately shocked to hear that all the money is coming down the over here. Are people just misreading? Atlanta sucks. No, they saw. I mean, this was Breeze last week that put up points at home against San Francisco. Now you're talking about Atlanta flying to the West Coast. They got to deal with shit, garbage in the streets, walking around in San Francisco. It's not a fun time. It's not a fun time over there. You get harassed every 3 steps. There's feces everywhere. It's not fun. You come from Atlanta. It's a nice place. And now you're in San Francisco. It's a fucking shithole. And now they got to play this incredible 49ers defense that is really, really good. Yes, did they let up points to Drew Brees at home at the fucking Dome? Yeah, but I mean, they're still San Francisco defense. They're still top 3 defenses in the league. And Atlanta has been a team very vulnerable to just good defense and a quality pass rush and all that. They've been playing a bunch of crapola teams of late, and they've looked acceptable. I mean, Carolina, acceptable. You know what I mean? But we're talking about a top of the league defense here. I definitely think it's the under, because I think San Francisco will very comfortably sit back and let Raheem Mostert and Coleman in the revenge game, whatever. I don't give a shit about that. And Breida and all of their running backs, and let all of their running backs just do their thing. I would be shocked if the stats model doesn't show like some insanely exorbitant number of yards. So 140, it's less than I thought.
They haven't been as good, San Francisco, here with the running game. That's why.
It's been a series of unfortunate events. Listen, we're talking about New Orleans. They've gone up against a series of very tough run defenses. Now it's Atlanta. So I'm a little surprised. But nonetheless, 140 yards is still pretty much the third, one of the higher numbers on the slate. I mean, it's not the highest, but it's up there.
Do you think Mostert has staying power for next year, guys? Do you think that he is? So, I mean,
do not draft him. Do not draft him high.
I mean, if he's like going in like the 7th or 8th round of drafts, I'm all in on that. I mean, he was a track star at Purdue. I mean, he just looks fast. He looks like a great running back in the NFL, and I think a lot of people are going to be hesitant on him. It's just you were just right there. So
I think you got the right call. And in your best ball league, if you're going to get him early season next year in the 8th round.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not in like 4th round. No way.
No, because you see what San Francisco does. They fuck you over. Next year it's going to be what's his name? The dude who keeps getting hurt. They got another guy on the roster.
McKinnon.
Yeah, they got J-Rock McQuinnan on that team to waiting in the wings. If he comes back. But just rest of this game breakdown. Manny Sanders went bananas last week. Could he have another good week? Sure, but am I paying $6,600 on DraftKings for him in this game again? Massive favorite at home on a team that will lean on the run if they can? Hell no. Hell no. That's not a play I'm going to do. I'd much rather, if I had to and you were forcing me, you put a gun in my head and said, you got to play a guy from this team. I mean, even Deebo Samuel's crazy expensive. I don't think I could play him at $5,800. So there's nothing going on outside of the running game for San Francisco and the San Francisco defense on that side that I have any interest in. And I have zero interest in Atlanta. Nothing. I have no interest. I will not play them.
What are your expectations for Julio Jones this week?
I expect bad things. Richard Sherman, he's going to be.
Yeah, I have a big money league, John, where I have to decide between Julio Jones, and I'm actually thinking about benching him for either AJ Brown or Deebo Samuel. So.
The fact that you're thinking about benching, don't bench Julio.
Yeah, you can't bench Julio ever.
Do that. Yeah, hold up. Let me be clear. Season-long players. You're in a season-long league. You're in the playoffs. You made it. Play Julio.
Yeah, I mean it's not an absurd question based on what you just said. I mean, you're saying what I just said is a bridge too far.
It's too much. Don't bench Julio unless your decision was DJ Moore or Julio Jones. You're like, this other guy's pretty fucking good. But I mean, if we're talking about WR3 Deebo Samuel in a what I consider a negative matchup where they're not going to need him, or Julio, or like Russell Gage, some of this crap. It's important to note, by the way, Ridley is out, so I guess Russell Gage will be heavily involved here.
All right, guys, let's hit the last game. Rams are going to Dallas. John, this one I saw was a pick'em. I said that this was going to end up being Rams. We're going to be favored by the end. Where are we at on it as of now?
Rams are favored. Rams are 1 point favorite right now.
Yeah, I think this is going to go all the way up to it might get 2.5 at some point.
It's possible. Dallas, obviously, we know they've been struggling here as of late. The last. Really, maybe even more than a month. Interesting, though, with Dallas, they have their offensive yards, their total offensive yardage higher than Seattle. Their yards given up lower than Seattle, right? And we are talking about two teams right now that we're looking at totally differently. So statistically, Dallas has been what we pretty much thought they were early in the season, and it's just not translating to wins. And they've looked really bad in a couple of these recently. Garrett, as a Cowboy fan, you almost want Dallas to lose here to get rid of this guy. The clapper, as we like to call him, on the sideline. But, it's not shocking. The Rams are catching all the cash. 80% of the money coming in on the Rams side of this game, and most of the tickets as well. If we look at it from a total standpoint, this is, again, one of the higher totals on the board. And the public likes the over 75% of the money coming in. I've got it down to 48.5. It's actually opened up at 47. So it has been rising, and it's going in the direction that the money's coming in on. So nothing out of the norm there.
Geek, Amari Cooper, that's the player I'm most interested in. If from a season-long perspective, I'm curious to hear what you think he might be able to accomplish and produce for me in DFS, because he's the other receiver I have in that league. Are you recommending DFS players go to him?
I'm going up against your wife.
Oh, that's right. And you have Amari.
I have Zeke, Amari, and Dak all in the same team.
Right. And my wife's a killer. You know that.
Her team is fucking awesome.
Yeah, as usual.
I'm shocked that the first place guy didn't choose me. But I'm going to tell you this, and this is, I wish if I could throw up a meme here, I throw up that Star Wars character where it's like, it's a trap, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know that one?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
All right, nice. I am concerned about this game because the Rams defense is very, very good, and Dallas is pretty good at playing a slowed up game. But yet there's this massive total. It's super close. Everything about the Vegas line, and everybody's betting the over, as John just said. So it's like, what the fuck? Why does my head, and this is where I need to spend the rest of the week, it's Wednesday now, maybe even convincing myself what my initial thought was wrong or something. Because the line in this game, 1 point spread, very high total, says stack it up and don't think twice.
All right. So
stack the shit out of it. That's what the line is telling us, right? It's a close game. It's going to be high scoring. But my knowledge of these two teams says, listen, Jalen Ramsey's on the Rams. They have a very good secondary. Now you're talking about Amari Cooper. He's going to be there. Oh, it's a trap. There you go. So I love it. Amari Cooper's on this team. He's going to be covered by Jalen Ramsey. He has not traditionally beaten elite coverage. That is not what Amari Cooper has done throughout his career. Doesn't mean he can't do it. This is very important. We're looking at probabilities. What is the probability of him having a very, very great game, a very high scoring, unusually good? It's less when Jalen Ramsey is on him. It's more when he's at home, but less with Jalen Ramsey. It all balances out. So let's look at the other guys for Dallas, like Randall Cobb, who will have a slightly better matchup. Michael Gallup, who will have a slightly better matchup. But all in all, I don't think this game projects great for any of these guys, including Zeke. It's just Rams defense is good. And this is the thing, John. What the fuck is going on with this 49-point total? Why is everybody betting the over? This is a good Rams defense. And Rams offense is very much prone to being shit. So there's so many factors here that tell me I don't know if I'm crazy. There's so many games I like this week. And because my gut is, I love Dak. I love Dak all season. He's great. But this is not a good matchup. And it's not a good matchup for either team for the scoring purposes. So I'm not sure what the hell's going on here, but my initial reaction is put it up. Put up that meme.
Oh, wait, hold on. Here we go. Hey, I'm getting, wait. Your initial reaction is what?
My initial reaction, it's a trap. There it is. All right.
that look,
John, what do you think of what I just said? I need to get your opinion.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here. I guess a lot, because I like the game more than you do. So I think Dallas is I think they will be able to score here. And I think the Rams are going to be able to put points. I like this game as the way I'm hearing it a lot more than you do. I think I'm not as worried about Cooper against Ramsey. I think he wins. Why aren't
you worried about that?
I think he wins that matchup. I think he's better. I think Cooper gets his this week, and I'm hoping people get scared off because of Ramsey. I will have me some Cooper in GPPs.
Okay. That's why I wanted you to bring that point of view, because man, I feel like I looked at it and then I looked at the line and I'm like, it wasn't clicking. It's not clicking for me. The game wasn't a standout for me when I first looked at it before the lines were out. So I'm like, this is very fascinating. And the -1, it's so close. On paper, this is the ultimate stack it up game. Like, it would be the best of the week on paper, but I don't know. That's why we have the whole week to research, and that's why I have John here to offer probably what is a sharper opinion than mine. I don't know.
Well, sometimes we have to bounce it off each other to get a sanity check. So if that's your sanity check right there in particular games, that's not a bad thing. That's the whole process.
Yeah, of course. And that's the whole thing. And by the way, it's fantasy football, and who the fuck knows? I just hope that they do well so I could crush Stacy and move on to the championships in our combined league.
She's going to be ready for you, man. She's been talking about the matchup all week. All right, boys. Well, we did it again. That is week 15. You guys crush it. Great analysis. We give that out to the public in hopes that you will come join us over at the DFS Army. Geek, quickly tell us how they could sign up for DFS Army.
Guys, just go to dfsarmy.com. You want to do this. Here, I've got a special for you. Let's say you're not a DFS star. You're watching this. You watch it every week. I don't want to pay for advice. Fuck that. Only suckers do that. Only suckers don't. But maybe you think that. So here's what we've got for you right now. there's a little button on the top of the screen called free offer, right? It's on the menu. We have a free month offer. So what I try to do is I say, listen, don't send me the money. Sign up for one of these sites that we work with that sponsor our site, Super Draft, FanDuel, Fantasy Draft, draft.com. There's a whole bunch of them, Monkey Knife Fight. Sign up for any one of them. Instead of sending us the $40 for the month subscription, deposit it in an account at Super Draft or Monkey Knife or one of these or FanDuel. Play it, wager it, use our tools to play it. Let's see what happens. So let them pay for your first month. Then you figure out, DFS Armor fucking sucks. That ain't for me. It's too much work. Okay. That's fine. Cool. No hard feelings. We're still friends. You used to watch the show here. I'll answer your comments. But maybe you'll be like, oh, I never knew all the tools that are actually available to people who play this. And no wonder I haven't been winning. I didn't realize all this shit. So what is there to lose? A free month. You get to bet. You put a money in your own account at a site. You bet it. It's the best deal ever. And then if you don't like it, all right, it's been nice knowing you. And let's say you don't want to do one of those, DM or hit up one of us we do some things with sports books where you can get a couple free months of Beat the Bookie. Hit any of us up, email, Slack, whatever, Twitter, tweet John. He'll said at Statsational. He'll let you know what to do to get a couple free months of Beat the Bookie.
When you tweet John, sometimes he'll give you that Richard Sherman face. Here it is.
That's it. There it is. There, I told you it was real. Man, you need to have these.
They needed a camera on me for that game.
Yeah,
I told you I lost. I bet that game. I had Seattle, and I had a $10,000 box pool that would have won if they scored that touchdown. So yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Wait. The best part is 5 seconds before. The agony to defeat is the greatest part of that meme. I've been using it for years.
All right, boys. Well, we did it again. We'll be back next week for Week 16, the all-important Week 16. We'll have a little bit more clarity. There'll be some players maybe resting, although this year it seems like it's going to be a dogfight all the way to the end for the NFL. You can check Statsational. He's in the Slack chat of DFS Army. He's also on Twitter at Statsational. The guy below me in the window here is the Fantasy Football Geek at FFootballGeek. I am at Alan Seslowski, a.k.a. Season Long Says. We'll be producing more content like this. Give us a like, a subscribe, ring the bell on YouTube, and you will get a notification when we go live. All right, boys, until next time, we'll see you in Week 16.